Good morning. I'm Denise Dryden. I'm here talking to you live on Facebook about the same things I do every week, which is what can we become aware of, how does it show up in our relationships, and what can we do about it personally. So there's several of these videos. You can go back if you're a first timer. If you've been watching for a while, make sure you like and subscribe, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, whatever media source you're on, so that I get some feedback as to what's working and what isn't working, right? So last week I talked about our Chiron wounds, and I went through it by the elements. And it was really, really fun to sort of look at what each element has as far as its energy. And some of the astrologers and groups that got in touch with me were going by the sign where Chiron is in your chart. And that doesn't make sense. What we want to do is we want to go by the house, because the house will give us the element that it holds. If we go by the sign, then everybody within 2 to 9 years has the exact same wound, and that would be kind of challenging. So we each have our own individual wound, and it ranges in 4 different kinds through 12 different houses. So go to Chiron, find it on your chart, go to your sign, and then go to your house. And whatever element that house holds is what we are going to work on. So the wound is it's like this little, the Chiron symbol is a circle with a K on top. It's like a key. And so it's sort of going, here, let me give you a pathway to understand yourself even better, right? Here, take this, please. And so the wound is what shows up over and over again in our life. It shuts us down. It stops us from flourishing. And it loops into all of our perceptions, into everything we know and do. It provides context for how we see the world. So when it's covered up and we don't know it's there, it's sort of like, it keeps bugging us and bugging us and bugging us until what we do is we go, so let me peel this back and find out what it is that I can do to turn this around. Okay. And before I get going into the actual elements, I offer a 4 session coaching series where we identify Chiron and we dive in and we dive in and we dive in, and then we flip it into the wound. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure to click in the descriptions below and you can sign up for that with me. So this wound is how we have the perception of how others have treated us, how the outside world has done something to us, how something has happened that has rocked our world. So the deepest part of this wound is that once it happened, we started holding on to it as such a sore spot, kind of protecting it, kind of pushing people away, that we conditioned ourselves into believing that is who we are, that is our wound. So we remember it, we feel it, we bring it into our day to day. And the key part about today is that this wound is self-inflicted and it's self-induced over time. It didn't happen that way. It happened a long time ago and we've carried it. Now there's a card in the tarot deck called the 9 of Swords. My least favorite card, probably the ugliest card in the deck, and I've been getting it over and over and over again because it's important to talk about this, which is sometimes somebody said to me, you're too tall, your hair is too frizzy, your teeth are crooked, whatever, right? And I took that in. And then throughout, the decades that followed, I've been the 9 of Swords, stabbing myself with those truths. Everything I do is trying to make sure my hair doesn't look frizzy, trying to make sure that I either own my tallness or that I try to blend in. So this is what I mean by self-inflicted, self-induced. So what we do is we hold the signature of this wound from the past and we bring it forward over and over and over again. So what I want to do is, last week we talked about how to flip it from the wound into our gifts. But before we can switch it into our gifts today, I want to go one step further, which I learned in a session yesterday, and it was like mind blown, okay? Which is that when we are operating through the eyes of others and we are self-inflicting and self-inducing, then the wound isn't that, I'm being oppressed from the outside world. It is something much different. So let's start and go through the 4 elements, right? So let's go for fire. In the tarot, it's wands. Fire is action, it's momentum, it's passion, it's spirit, right? And the wound is oppression. It means that we feel pushed down, we feel flattened, we feel cut off, somebody's stopping us from. So what I want to talk about today is that wound is self-oppression. It's when we oppress ourselves, when we don't go do what we want because we're afraid of what someone thinks, where we don't believe that we can, where we're afraid of our wildness, we're afraid of our energy, we're afraid of our creativity. And of course that wound came from someplace where we were way too much for someone else, right? Way too strong-willed, way too hot. and parents and people were trying to push us down like, shh, stop, get back in the box. But what happens is we learned how to do that to ourselves. So we don't really let ourselves feel the freedoms. What we do is we self-oppress. Let's go to water, which is cups in the tarot. It's our emotions, it's our feelings, it's energy in motion, right? And the wound for that is betrayal. And so the betrayal is where we thought we were going along and believing something, feeling something, and someone changed it or yanked it or something changed. And we're like, oh, no, I was so invested in that. That was what I wanted to be. This is who I am. This is what I thought was going to work, right? And so what happens, though, is that betrayal turns into, again, when we go back to ourself, self-betrayal, betrayal of self. So you can see where I'm going with this. Each one of these has this thing where we turn around and we start to betray ourselves because we're used to betrayal. So let's go to air, which is the swords, which is mental, our thoughts, how we bring things into constructs. And the wound is rejection. And so rejection is where somebody tells you that you didn't think it through. You're not smart enough. It didn't work. Or in these thoughts where you can hear other people saying judgments about you, right? And so what happens is in the deeper part of the wound, it's self-rejection. It's where we reject ourselves. We are the ones who have those voices. We are the ones who have these repetitive thoughts, right? Number 4 is the earth and the discs. In tarot, it's discs or pentacles. It's the physical world. It's earth. It's the 3D. It's the things we smell, touch, taste, interact with, eat, bodies, learning, hiking, skiing, all of that, right? So the wound is abandonment, which means that the world didn't give me what I needed. I either was abandoned with clothing and food and shelter. I was abandoned from love. I was cut out of a school, off a team, off of something, right? So the wound, the deeper part of the wound, is that you abandoned yourself, right? It's self-abandonment. And so this is what you are doing to yourself, right? So when we do this to ourselves, this is where it shows up as, oh man, I'm the culprit. It might have happened a long time ago, but I continue this. So when we have fire, when we are self-oppressing, we don't trust our movement forward. We don't feel like we can be all of ourselves. We keep ourselves in a tight little box. We do that because maybe it's better to feel control, to feel like we have more control of our lives. It's where we stifle our passion. It's where we try to fit in within the culture of our family. Like, what happens if I'm raised in a household with people who don't like to watch TV and sit on the couch and read books every night? Yawn. For me, I need stories. I need excitement. I want television. I want drama. To me, that's like, and if I don't go find it, then I get to blame them. But at the same time, that's where I self-oppress, right? So to flip that, which is to know that I am always moving, that I am passionate, that I care about things, that I create things, that I have momentum. So when I take that oppression up off of myself, I give myself permission to go do this. This is the most important thing that I can do for me right now. So by identifying that I'm self-oppressing, then what we do is we lift it off. That makes sense? So let's go to water, which is where we are in self-betrayal, okay? This is where we manipulate. This is where we bargain. This is where we lie to ourselves. It's like, yeah, but, and, if and when, and we have all these strings to everything that we want to do. It's where we misplace our willpower. It's where we future trip and deny. We play it out until the possibilities, we go like, you know what, it's just not going to work, so why bother? And so this is where our emotions get ahead of us, or our emotions are manipulated, and we even lie to ourselves like, I can cheat on this today and I'll be much better tomorrow, right? So what happens is we self-betray. we give ourselves away, we break our own agreements, and we betray ourselves. So in order to flip that, the most authentic thing, or the most important thing we can do is be authentic, right? Is we be authentic, honest, real, that line up our actions and our words and have boundaries. Like when I say I'm going to do this, then I do this. Because it's really important to drop the old stories as justification and to say, I'm playing games with myself. I'm betraying myself. I have to get real and get honest with me. Okay? Air, which is the mental, the rejection, the self-rejection, right? It's when we reject ourselves, we're hard on ourselves. We perseverate with these negative thoughts that loop over and over and over, and we tell ourselves that we can't do this, or we tell ourselves what's wrong with us, or we repeat things that we've heard, things that we know, things that we believe that we can't do. Like, I can't do math. I'm too tall. My hair's too frizzy, right? Whatever, right? It's where we perseverate these words. And because words turn into form, then what happens is we start to create a repetitive world in front of us all the time where we're repeating what we think. And it's showing up in the physical 3D world in front of us. So the way that we flip that is that we hold boundaries on our thoughts. And the example I would use is that any of you who've ever been a parent where you have a toddler who's decided to pitch a fit in the middle of the grocery store or on a soccer field or at home when you're trying to get dinner, going, or a meal, or out the door or something, right? Is that you have to be really kind and redirect it, which is like, I know, here you go again. Yep. So let's just turn it around. So we go into love, we go into patience, we go into kindness, because what we're doing is, instead of rejecting ourselves, which is, you're not okay, we say, I'm okay. I've got this. Let's just redirect it and take it over to here. So we're accessing a different kind of a superpower, right? On the earth side, when we self-abandon, when we have abandoned ourselves, we put things down that matter to us, because it's like I could do this, but if I put it down, then I don't have to ever worry about it, right? We walk away in anger, we blame others. The physical world doesn't work for us, so we have shut it off, and we push up against it, and we don't allow it to have any control over us. So we abandon any attachment we have to the world and to ourselves. So we self-abandon the things that are important to us. So in order to flip that, is that you show up, you follow through, you talk to yourself about it as you're going along, like, wow, I didn't realize how much I liked doing this. Whether it's starting a yoga practice, getting back in shape because it's springtime, getting ready for summer activities, training for a sport that you like to do, anything that we're doing in the preparation is to talk to yourself about how important it is to you and what you like about it, so that you can start to bring into form and work with the things in form that you like, which is the physical flip of self-abandoning, right? So all of these are removing the outer and the deservability of ourselves. Like, we deserve not to be oppressed. We deserve not to self-betray. We deserve not to be rejecting ourselves. And we reserve our ability to show up for ourselves and not abandon, right? So let's go through. I only really have 3 tips because this got kind of long, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to really hone in that we do it to ourselves first. So tips. Number 1 is realize that you're the only source of wounding. That yes, it did happen in the past, and if you hold on to the past, then you hold on to the victim energy. And the victim energy is sticky and it holds us down. So what we do is we take the ownership back. This is sovereignty, that we believe we create our own world, that we're worthy of managing it, and that nothing is going to put us down. So what we do is we realize, number 1, that we're the one who's doing it, right? And when we're the one who's doing it, then we have to take care of that. Now, if you look at the idea when you point your finger at somebody, you've got one finger out there, but you've got 3 fingers pointing back, which is you've got some work to do. So make sure that we realize that you're the source of the wounding and you're the one who can change it. You're the only one. You can't get somebody else outside to stop that. Number 2, when you're raising kids or when you're living with a partner, is that you have to know that they have their own wound operating too. And it's kind of fun to play into, I wonder what their wounds are. With young children, it doesn't make sense because, well, you know, at least to try to avoid that, being the parent who did that to them, but then sometimes it just happens, right? So the thing that we can do is we can pay attention to how they're playing a wound out and how we're playing a wound out, and then model your awareness of what that is. Oh yeah, I am definitely in my self-betrayal. I'm doing self-lying. Look at me just inch, manipulate around. Stop that, right? And so you're honest with it and you say it out loud. This is what I know about myself. Number 3 is that this takes an enormous amount of kindness and self-awareness and presence, and to pace, you know, this flip, which is, oh man, I'm back at it again. And to not go into the dialogue of self-rejection or, you know, just get smaller, right? So we flip it into the gifts, which is like knowing that you have to go underneath that sore and go find it. What is it that I really know how to do really well? What is it that I'm super good at with this? So when I show up and I'm authentic, is those of you who've seen me doing these presentations, you know that if betrayal is my thing, then I can look you right in the eye and say, you know, this is an authentic, real presentation, and that there's no, you can't detect that there's any stickiness around me. So that is my superpower, right? So again, using the concept of that this isn't going to flip overnight, that this is going in and bringing the tools, bringing the skills, bringing the gifts up, and then owning those. Kind of like what we talked about earlier with that toddler, which is redirect, hold some boundaries, show a lot of love, and align with love. Because it isn't that you want to be loving, it isn't that you want someone else to show you love, it's that you want to hold love and unconditional love on you, which is, I have some great skills that I've forgotten about, and as I find them, I'm going to rock this world. So here I go. So this is the kind of stuff I do each week. I think I'm kind of done with Chiron. I've been digging into it for a couple times. Let's see where we go next week. I've got an Indigo series that's going on and a book that's coming out. So I will show you when I get the book cover and give you a date on what the Indigo assignment's going to be. Meanwhile, again, subscribe, like, check this off, and get on my list, and I will see you next Sunday. You can always find me on DeniseDryden.com. Have a great Sunday and a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.